That night, at my daughter-in-law's birthday party, I realized that some words can never be taken back, even when they're wrapped in laughter. My name is Jimena Arriaga del Rio. I'm 59 years old, and this is the story I kept to myself until now. Not because I'm ashamed, but because some truths need time to settle, like dust after a storm. I want you to picture something with me. A backyard full of people, string lights hanging between the trees, the smell of grilled meat and birthday cake mixing in the warm evening air. My son Daniel, laughing with his friends by the barbecue, and me, standing near the dessert table, holding a small gift wrapped in silver paper. Inside that gift was a porcelain photo frame, white, with tiny flowers carved into the edges. I'd spent 2 weeks looking for the perfect one. I wanted to give her something that said, "You matter to me. You're part of this family." I raised 3 children on my own after my husband passed. I worked double shifts at the hospital, cleaned houses on weekends, and never missed a school play or a scraped knee. I taught my son to respect women, to honor his word, and to build a home with love, not just walls. And when Daniel brought Clara home for the first time, I welcomed her. I taught her my mother's recipes. I hemmed her wedding dress. I held her hand in the hospital when she miscarried their first baby, and I never told a soul because she asked me not to. I thought we had something, not perfect, but real. The party was loud. People were dancing. Clara's friends were taking photos by the fire pit. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked in that white dress, her hair pulled back, her smile wide and easy. Then someone handed her the microphone. At first, she thanked everyone for coming. She talked about how blessed she felt, how much she loved her life. Her voice was sweet, almost rehearsed, and then she said it. "Cheers to me, another year of putting up with my annoying mother-in-law." The backyard went silent for half a second. Then people started laughing, loud, awkward laughter, the kind that fills the air when no one knows what else to do. I felt my face go hot. My hands tightened around the gift, but I didn't move. I didn't cry. I smiled. I smiled because that's what women like me do. We swallow, we stay calm, we don't make a scene. Daniel looked at me from across the yard. His face was pale. He mouthed the words, "I'm sorry, Mom," but he didn't say anything out loud. He didn't defend me. He just stood there, frozen, like a boy who didn't know which woman to protect. Clara handed the microphone back and walked over to me. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "You know I'm just kidding, right?" I nodded. I even hugged her. But inside, something shifted, something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not even hurt. Clarity. I stayed for another hour. I helped clean up. I said goodbye to everyone with the same warm smile I always wore. And when I got into my car, I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes, staring at that porcelain frame still sitting in the passenger seat. I didn't give it to her that night. I drove home in silence. I made myself a cup of tea. And I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and a piece of paper. Sometimes we love people who don't see us. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Tell me your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I wrote all night. By the time the sun came up, I had made a decision. The next morning, I put everything into a brown envelope. I sealed it carefully. I drove to their house while Daniel was at work, and Clara was out running errands. I walked up to the front porch, set the envelope on the table near the door, and left. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I just walked away. But that afternoon, my phone started ringing. 27 times. All from Clara. I didn't answer the phone. Not the first time, not the 10th, not even the 27th. I sat in my living room, watching the screen light up with her name over and over again. Each call felt like a knock on a door I'd already closed. And for the first time in years, I didn't rush to open it. Let me take you back. Before the envelope. Before the microphone. Before the laughter that cut deeper than any argument ever could. Let me show you what I thought we had. When Daniel first brought Clara home, she was 24 years old, shy, soft-spoken. She had this way of tucking her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, and she did it a lot that first dinner. I made pozole, my mother's recipe. The kind that takes all day and fills the house with the smell of hominy and chili and love. Clara ate 2 bowls. She looked at me with those wide brown eyes and said, "This is the best thing I've ever tasted." I believed her. She started coming over every Sunday after that. We'd sit in the kitchen while I cooked, and she'd tell me about her job at the dentist's office, about her childhood in a small town in Texas, about how her own mother had passed away when she was 16. I saw myself in her. A girl who'd lost too much too young. A girl trying to build a family from scratch. So I decided to be the mother she didn't have anymore. I taught her how to make tamales at Christmas. I showed her which fabric softener I used to keep Daniel's shirts smelling like home. I gave her my grandmother's rosary when they got married, and I whispered in her ear, "This will protect you." It protected me. When she got pregnant the first time, I was the first person she told. Even before Daniel. She called me at 6 in the morning, crying, "Jimena, I'm scared." I drove to her house in my pajamas. I held her while she took 3 pregnancy tests in a row. I told her she was going to be a wonderful mother. And when she lost that baby at 12 weeks, I was there too. I held her in the hospital bathroom while she sobbed so hard she couldn't breathe. I stroked her hair and told her it wasn't her fault. I promised her that God had a plan, even when we couldn't see it. Daniel didn't know how to comfort her. He's a good man, my son, but he freezes when things get too heavy. So I stayed. I brought her soup. I sat with her in silence. I never once made her feel like she had to be strong for anyone. That was 5 years ago. And somewhere between then and now, something changed. I didn't see it at first. It was small. A comment here. A look there. Like the time I brought over a batch of pan dulce, and she said, "Oh, Jimena, you know we're trying to eat healthier." Or when I offered to babysit their dog while they went on vacation, and she said, "It's okay, we'll just board him. It's easier." Easier than me. I told myself I was being sensitive, that daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law always had a little tension, that it was normal. But then her friends started coming over more often, and I started getting invited less. Then Daniel stopped calling me every day. He'd say, "Mom, Clara thinks we should have more boundaries." Boundaries. That word became a wall. I respected it. I pulled back. I waited for holidays and birthdays to see my own son. And I told myself it was fine. But it wasn't fine. As I tell you this, I wonder where you're listening from. Write your city below so I can feel a little closer to you. The morning of her birthday party, I woke up early. I ironed my nicest blouse. I wrapped that porcelain frame with care, running my fingers over the carved flowers, imagining where she might put it. On the mantel, maybe, or on her nightstand. I thought, maybe tonight she'll remember how much I love her. I drove to their house with a box of conchas from the panaderia she liked. I helped set up the chairs in the backyard. I smiled at all her friends, even the ones who barely looked at me. And when the sun set and the music started, I stood in the corner by the dessert table, watching my son laugh with people I didn't know, in a home that used to feel like mine, too. That's when she grabbed the microphone. And everything I'd swallowed for 5 years came rising back up. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment over and over. Her voice through the microphone, the laughter that followed, Daniel's face across the yard, pale and frozen. And my smile, that terrible automatic smile. I got up around 3 in the morning and made myself tea. Chamomile, the kind my mother used to make when I couldn't sleep as a girl. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, and that's when I noticed it. The porcelain frame, still wrapped in silver paper, still sitting on the counter where I'd left it. I picked it up and held it in my hands. It was heavier than I remembered. Or maybe I was just finally feeling the weight of everything I'd been carrying. 5 years of swallowing comments. 5 years of boundaries that only seemed to apply to me. 5 years of watching my son choose silence over defending the woman who raised him. I unwrapped the frame slowly. The porcelain was smooth and cool against my fingertips. The tiny carved flowers looked almost real in the dim light from the stove. I thought about all the frames I'd given over the years. To my children. To my grandchildren who hadn't been born yet. To the people I loved, hoping they'd fill them with memories that included me. But this one, I realized, would stay empty. I set it on the table and stared at it for a long time. Then I got up, opened the drawer where I kept my important papers, and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents I'd been organizing for months, things I'd planned to give to Daniel eventually, when the time was right. But that night, Sitting in my kitchen with the taste of humiliation still bitter in my mouth, I realized something. The time was right now. I'm not a vengeful woman. I didn't want to hurt anyone. But I'd spent my whole life making sure everyone else was comfortable, even when it cost me my own peace. And I was tired. So I started writing. I wrote about the house, the one my husband and I bought 42 years ago, when Daniel was just a baby. The house I'd almost lost twice when money got tight. The house I'd worked 3 jobs to keep. The house that was in my name. Only my name. I wrote about the life insurance policy, the one I'd been paying into for 30 years. The one Daniel didn't know had him as the sole beneficiary, for now. I wrote about the savings account, the one I'd built penny by penny, sacrifice by sacrifice, so that my children would have something when I was gone. I didn't write these things to threaten. I wrote them to remind Clara and my son that respect isn't just a word you say at weddings and funerals. It's something you show, every day, in the small moments, in the way you speak about someone when you think they can take it. I wrote until the sun started coming up, then I read everything twice. I made sure my words were clear but not cruel, firm but not angry. Because anger burns fast and fades, but dignity lasts. I printed everything out. I placed the documents in a brown envelope along with a letter, 1 page, handwritten. At the top I wrote, "To Clara and Daniel," and then I wrote this. "Last night you called me annoying. You said it in front of 50 people and they laughed. You laughed. And I smiled, because that's what I've always done. I've smiled through disrespect. I've stayed quiet through dismissal. I've loved you both even when I felt invisible. But I want you to know something. The house you've been planning to inherit? The savings account you think will be there someday? The future you've imagined? It all rests on something very simple. Respect. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not asking you to include me in every part of your life. But I am asking you to see me, to remember that I am not a joke. I am not a burden. I am a woman who sacrificed everything so that my son could build the life he has now. And if you can't honor that, then you need to know, everything I've built can be given to someone who will. I'm not making threats. I'm setting a boundary, the kind you've asked me to respect for years. Now I'm asking you to respect mine. The choice is yours, with love and with clarity, Jimena." I folded the letter carefully. I placed it on top of the documents. I sealed the envelope. And then I got dressed, got in my car, and drove to their house. It was early, maybe 7 in the morning. Daniel's truck was gone. He always left for work before sunrise. Clara's car was still in the driveway, but the lights inside were off. I walked up to the front porch. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. I set the envelope on the table near the door, right next to a potted plant I'd given them last Mother's Day. I didn't knock. I didn't leave a note on the outside. I just turned around and walked back to my car. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The envelope sat there, waiting. I still wonder if I did the right thing. What about you? What would you have done in my place? By the time I got home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not sadness, peace. But 3 hours later, my phone started ringing. And it didn't stop. The first call came at 10:30 in the morning. I was watering my plants on the back porch when I heard my phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. I looked through the screen door and saw her name, Clara. I let it ring. The second call came 2 minutes later, then the third, then the fourth. By the time she'd called 7 times, I turned the phone face down and went back to my plants. My hands were steady as I poured water into the terracotta pots. The jasmine vine I'd been growing for 3 years was finally blooming. Small white flowers, delicate and sweet-smelling. I touched one of the petals and thought about how long some things take to grow, how much patience they require, how easy they are to damage. The phone kept buzzing behind me, a steady rhythm, desperate. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel powerful either. I just felt clear. After the 15th call, a text message came through, then another, then 5 more in a row. I didn't read them right away. I finished watering my plants. I made myself a fresh pot of coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table with a slice of pan dolce left over from the party. The party. It felt like it had happened years ago, not just yesterday. Finally, I picked up my phone. The messages filled the screen. Jimena, please call me back. I need to talk to you. This isn't funny. I don't understand what this means. Are you really going to do this? Please, call me. Daniel doesn't know yet. I haven't told him. Can we please just talk? I read each one slowly, carefully, the way you read something you want to remember exactly as it was written. Her tone shifted with every message, from confused to annoyed to scared. But nowhere, not in a single message, did she say she was sorry. I set the phone down and took a sip of my coffee. I thought about all the times I'd rushed to answer her calls, all the times I'd dropped everything to help, to listen, to fix whatever small crisis had come up that day. And I realized something. I'd taught her that my time didn't matter, that my feelings were optional, that I would always be there no matter how I was treated. I'd trained her to take me for granted. The calls kept coming. 16, 17, 18. Around noon, my daughter Sophia called. She lives 2 hours away with her husband and my grandbabies. I answered immediately. "Mama," she said, her voice tight. "Clara just called me. She's freaking out. What's going on?" I took a breath. "Did she tell you what happened at her party?" Silence. "Mama, she said it was just a joke." "A joke," I repeated. The word tasted like rust. In front of 50 people, and everyone laughed. "She didn't mean it like that. Sophia," my voice was calm but firm. "I love you, but I need you to hear me. I have spent 5 years being quiet, being small, letting her comments slide because I didn't want to cause problems. And yesterday, she called me annoying into a microphone, and your brother said nothing." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, "What did you do, Mama?" I set a boundary. "What kind of boundary?" "The kind I should have set a long time ago." She sighed. "Clara says you're threatening to cut them out of your will." I closed my eyes. Of course that's how Clara would frame it. Not as a consequence, not as a reflection, as a threat. "I'm not threatening anyone," I said. "I'm reminding them that respect is a choice, and so is inheritance. Mama, you can't just—" "Yes, I can." My voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. "I worked my whole life for what I have, and I get to decide who receives it. That's not a threat, Mija. That's a fact." Sophia didn't say anything for a while. Then quietly, "She really hurt you, didn't she?" My throat tightened. "Yes, I'm sorry, Mama." "Thank you." We talked for a few more minutes. I told her I loved her. I told her this wasn't about her or her brother. It was about me finally remembering my own worth. When we hung up, I felt the weight of it. The loneliness of standing firm when everyone wants you to bend. The phone buzzed again. Call number 22. I stared at Clara's name on the screen, and I thought about all the women who came before me. My mother, my grandmother, women who swallowed their pain because they believed that's what love required. Women who died with their hurts still buried in their chests. I didn't want to be that woman anymore, so I let it ring. By the time the sun started to set, Clara had called 27 times. 27 times, and not once did she leave a voicemail. Not once did she say the words that mattered. I stood at my kitchen window, watching the sky turn orange and pink. The jasmine on my back porch swayed in the breeze, and I could smell it through the screen. My phone buzzed one last time. A final text message. "Fine. You win. I'll come over tomorrow." I read it twice. "You win." As if this were a game. As if my dignity were a prize to be awarded or withheld. I set the phone down and looked at the porcelain frame still sitting on my kitchen table. Empty, waiting. I picked it up and walked to my bedroom. I opened the closet and pulled out an old shoebox filled with photographs. Pictures of my children when they were small. Pictures of my husband before the cancer took him. Pictures of my mother in her garden. I found one I'd almost forgotten. Me, at 28 years old, holding Daniel as a baby. My face was young and hopeful. My eyes were bright. I slipped the photo into the frame, and I placed it on my nightstand. Not for Clara, not for anyone else, for me. To remember the woman I'd been, and the woman I was becoming again. Tomorrow, Clara would come, and we would talk. But tonight, I would sleep soundly, because for the first time in 5 years, I had chosen myself. Clara arrived at 2 in the afternoon. I heard her car pull into the driveway. I heard the engine shut off. Then silence for almost 3 minutes before she finally knocked on the door. I'd been ready since noon. I'd made coffee, set out 2 cups, arranged some galetas on a small plate, the way I always did when someone visited. Old habits. But when I opened the door and saw her face, I knew this conversation would be different from any we'd ever had. Her eyes were red, not from crying, from anger. Her jaw was tight. She held her purse against her chest like a shield. "Jimena," she said. Not Mom, not even a greeting, just my name. "Come in," I said. She walked past me without looking me in the eye. She sat down at the kitchen table in the chair she always used to sit in, back when she came over every Sunday. I poured the coffee. I slid a cup toward her. She didn't touch it. "So," she said, her voice sharp, "are we really doing this?" I sat down across from her. I folded my hands on the table. "Doing what?" "This," she gestured vaguely. "This whole punishment thing, over a joke." There it was, the word I'd been waiting for, joke. I took a slow breath. "Clara, when you said what you said at your party, was I laughing?" She blinked. "What? Was I laughing?" I don't know. I wasn't looking at you. I was smiling," I said quietly. "But I wasn't laughing. And do you know why?" She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. "Because it wasn't funny." She looked away. "It was just, everyone was having a good time. I didn't think—" "You didn't think I would hear it?" I leaned forward slightly. "Or you didn't think it would matter?" Her face flushed. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I kept my voice calm, steady. "Tell me, Clara, if I had taken that microphone and said, 'Cheers to me for putting up with my ungrateful daughter-in-law,' would that have been funny?" Her eyes widened. "That's different." "How?" "Because—" She stopped. Her mouth opened and closed like she was searching for words that wouldn't come. "Because you can say it about me," I said softly, "but I can't say it about you." Silence filled the kitchen, heavy and uncomfortable. She looked down at her hands. "I didn't mean it the way you're taking it." "Then how did you mean it?" "It was just, it's what people say. Mother-in-law jokes. Everyone makes them." "Everyone," I repeated. "So that makes it okay?" She didn't answer. I reached across the table and picked up the envelope, the same one I'd left on her porch. She'd brought it with her, crumpled slightly at the edges. "When you opened this," I said, "what did you feel?" She swallowed hard. "I felt scared." "Scared of what?" "That you were going to—" She trailed off. "Cut you off?" I finished for her. "Take away the things you've been counting on?" Her silence was answer enough. I nodded slowly. "So you understand then. What it feels like to realize someone you thought loved you might not be there anymore." Her eyes filled with tears, real ones this time. "That's not fair." "No," I said gently. "It's not." She looked up at me, confused. "It's not fair that I spent 5 years trying to be the mother you lost. It's not fair that I held your hand through the hardest moment of your life and never asked for anything in return. It's not fair that I respected every boundary you set while you walked all over mine." The tears spilled over. She wiped at them quickly, angrily. "I didn't ask you to do any of that," she said, her voice breaking. "You're right," I said. "You didn't. I chose to. Because I loved you." "Loved?" The word came out like a gasp. Past tense? I looked at her for a long moment. This girl I'd welcomed into my home. This woman I'd tried so hard to reach. "I still love you, Clara," I said. "But I don't trust you anymore." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "And without trust," I continued, "love becomes exhausting." She put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. And for a moment I almost reached across the table, almost told her it was okay, almost swallowed my truth one more time. But I didn't. I sat there and let her cry, let her feel the weight of what she'd broken. When she finally looked up, her face was blotchy and wet. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to see me," I said simply. "Not as a joke, not as an obligation. As a person who has feelings, who has given you more than you ever acknowledged." "I do see you." "Do you?" I tilted my head. "When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time you said thank you for something I did? When was the last time you defended me when your friends made comments?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. "I thought so," I said softly. She looked down at the envelope in her hands. "So what now? You're really going to change your will?" I don't know yet, I said honestly. That depends on you. On me? On whether you're willing to change, to see what you've been doing, to treat me the way you'd want to be treated. She was quiet for a long time. Then, in a small voice, she said, I'm sorry. I waited. I'm sorry for what I said, and for not seeing it, for not seeing you. The words hung in the air between us. Simple, small, but real. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. So, are we okay? I picked up my coffee cup. It had gone cold. We will be, I said, but it's going to take time and effort from both of us. She nodded quickly, too quickly. Clara, I said, my voice firm, I mean it. If things go back to the way they were, I'm done. I won't fight with you. I won't make a scene. I'll just step back, quietly, permanently. Her face went pale. Jimena, I'm not trying to scare you, I said. I'm trying to be honest. I'm too old to waste my time on people who don't value me. Even if one of them is married to my son. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. She stood up slowly, clutching her purse. I'll do better, she whispered. I promise. I walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned back. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you answer my calls? I smiled. A real smile this time. Because I needed you to sit with what you'd done, without me rushing in to make it easier. She nodded slowly, understanding maybe, or beginning to. After she left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching her car disappear down the street. I didn't know if she would keep her promise. I didn't know if Daniel would finally stand up for me. I didn't know if our family would heal or fracture. But I knew one thing. I had spoken my truth, and I had survived it. That night, I looked at the porcelain frame on my nightstand, the one with my younger self holding baby Daniel, and I whispered to that young woman, you did good. You raised him right, and now you're learning to raise yourself. But this story wasn't over yet, because 3 weeks later, something happened that neither Clara nor I could have predicted. For 3 weeks, things were different. Clara called me twice a week, not out of obligation, but to check in, to ask how I was feeling, to invite me over for coffee. Daniel came by on Sundays, alone sometimes, just to talk. He apologized for not defending me at the party. He said he'd been a coward, and he was ashamed. I told him I forgave him, because I did. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the wound define you. Clara was trying. I could see it. She asked about my plants. She remembered the name of my favorite bakery. She even brought me flowers one afternoon. Daisies, simple and sweet. I accepted them. I put them in a vase on my kitchen table. But I was still cautious, still watching, still waiting to see if this change was real or just temporary fear. And then, one Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice was tight. Mom, can you come over? It's Clara. My heart dropped. What happened? Is she hurt? No, she's... Just come over. Please. I grabbed my keys and drove faster than I should have. When I got to their house, Daniel was standing on the front porch, his face pale and drawn. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. What's going on? I asked, climbing the steps. He didn't answer. He just opened the door and led me inside. Clara was sitting on the couch, her knees pulled up to her chest, staring at nothing. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair was unbrushed. I sat down beside her carefully. Mija, what happened? She didn't look at me. She just whispered, I lost my job. I glanced at Daniel. He nodded. They let me go yesterday, Clara continued, her voice hollow. Budget cuts, they said. But I know the real reason. What reason? I asked gently. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red and raw. My boss was at the party, at my birthday party. My stomach tightened. She heard what I said, about you. And the next day, she called me into her office. Clara's voice cracked. She said she'd been noticing some attitude problems, that I didn't seem like a team player, that I made inappropriate jokes. She laughed bitterly. Inappropriate jokes, that's what she called it. I stayed quiet, letting her talk. She said the company values respect and professionalism, and that if I couldn't show respect to my own family in public, how could they trust me to represent them? Clara put her face in her hands. I tried to explain. I tried to tell her it was just a joke, that you and I were fine. But she'd already made up her mind. Daniel sat down on the other side of her. We'll figure it out, babe. You'll find something else. But Clara shook her head. You don't understand. She called 3 of my references, 3 people I'd listed for other jobs I'd applied to, and she told them exactly why I was let go. My chest tightened. Nobody's calling me back, Clara whispered. Nobody wants to hire someone who disrespects their family. It makes them look unreliable. The room fell silent. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. This was the natural consequence of her choices. But another part of me, the part that had held her hand through her miscarriage, the part that had taught her to make tamales, that part ached for her. I'm sorry, I said quietly. She looked at me, surprised. Why are you apologizing? This is my fault. I know, I said, but I'm still sorry you're hurting. Her face crumpled. She leaned into me, and I held her while she cried. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from shame and regret, and the terrible realization that some words can never be taken back. Daniel watched us, his eyes wet. After a while, Clara pulled away and wiped her face. I don't know what to do. You start over, I said simply. You learn from this, and you move forward. But how? She asked. Who's going to hire me now? I thought for a moment. Then I said, You're a good dental assistant, Clara. You're skilled. You're smart. What happened at your party doesn't define your entire character, but how you respond to it will. She looked at me, confused. You made a mistake, I continued. A public one. And now you're facing public consequences. But that doesn't mean your life is over. It means you have a choice. You can either let this destroy you, or you can use it to become better. How do I do that? You own it, I said. When you interview for your next job and they ask why you left, you tell the truth. You say you made a mistake, that you learned from it, that you're not the same person you were 3 weeks ago. Clara stared at me. You think anyone will believe that? I don't know, I said honestly. But I know that the woman who held my hand in the hospital, who cried on my shoulder, who wanted so badly to be a mother, that woman is still in there, and she's worth fighting for. Tears streamed down Clara's face again. I don't deserve your kindness. Maybe not, I said. But I'm giving it to you anyway, because that's what family does. Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you, Mom. I nodded, but inside, I was thinking about something else, about how life has a way of keeping score, not through revenge or punishment, but through natural consequences, through the way our actions ripple outward, touching people we didn't even know were watching. Clara had called me annoying into a microphone, and someone had been listening, someone who mattered. I didn't cause this. I didn't orchestrate it. I didn't even want it. But it happened anyway, because karma doesn't need our permission. It just does its work quietly, patiently, in its own time. I stayed with them for another hour. I made sandwiches. I listened while Clara talked about her fears, her regrets, her plans. And when I finally drove home that evening, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not triumph, just sadness for all of us. For the way pride and carelessness can cost us so much more than we ever imagined. That night, I stood in my kitchen and looked at the daisies Clara had brought me. They were starting to wilt. I trimmed the stems, changed the water, gave them a little more time. Some things can be saved. Some things can bloom again. But only if we tend to them with care, and only if we remember that words, once spoken, can never be unheard. They travel farther than we think. They reach ears we didn't know were listening, and sometimes they come back to us in ways we never expected. 6 months passed. Clara found a new job. Not in a dental office, those doors had closed, but she found work at a community health clinic, answering phones and scheduling appointments. The pay was less, the hours were longer, but she showed up every day with her head down and her heart open. She was different now, quieter, more careful with her words. I watched her change the way you watch a plant grow back after a hard frost, slowly, tentatively, but unmistakably alive. She started coming over on Wednesdays, just her, without Daniel. We'd sit in my kitchen and drink coffee, and sometimes she'd help me with my garden. One afternoon, while we were pulling weeds from the jasmine bed, she said, "I saw my old boss yesterday." I looked up. "Where?" "At the grocery store." Clara's hands stilled in the dirt. She was in the pharmacy section. I almost didn't recognize her at first. "Did you talk to her?" She shook her head. "She didn't see me, but I saw her face." Clara sat back on her heels, wiping her forehead. She looked tired, really tired, and thin. I waited. "I heard from someone at my old office that she's been sick. Cancer, they think. She's been doing treatments." My chest tightened. "I'm sorry to hear that." Clara nodded slowly. "When I saw her, I felt, I don't know, angry at first. Like, this woman ruined my life. But then I watched her struggling to read the labels on the medication bottles, and I just felt sad." She pulled another weed, more gently this time. "She was just a person doing what she thought was right, holding people accountable, and I was the one who gave her a reason." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're learning." "Am I?" she asked quietly. "Because sometimes I still feel so angry at myself for being so stupid, for throwing away everything over a joke that wasn't even funny." "Clara, look at me." She turned, her eyes searching mine. "You made a mistake," I said. "A painful one. But you didn't throw away everything. You're still here. Your marriage is still standing. You have people who love you." "But I lost so much." "Yes," I said. "You did. And that loss taught you something you couldn't have learned any other way." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What did it teach me?" "That your words matter. That people are always watching. That respect isn't optional. It's the foundation of everything." Tears filled her eyes. "I hurt you so badly." "You did," I said honestly. "But you're also trying to make it right. And that means something." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a smudge of dirt on her cheek. I reached over and brushed it away, the way I used to do when my children were small. "Jimena," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Always." Do you think God punished me for what I said?" I thought carefully before answering. "I don't think God punishes us, Mija. I think life reflects back what we put into it. You spoke without thinking. You hurt someone in public, and someone else saw that and made a decision based on what they witnessed. So it was my fault." "It was a consequence," I corrected, "not a punishment. Consequences teach us. Punishments just make us bitter." She nodded slowly, absorbing this. "But here's what I want you to remember," I continued. "That same life that gave you consequences, it also gave you chances. It gave you Daniel, who stood by you. It gave you a new job, even when the old doors closed. It gave you me, still sitting here in this garden with you." Her face softened. "Why did you forgive me?" "Because I remember what it's like to make mistakes," I said. "And because holding on to anger would have hurt me more than it hurt you." We worked in silence for a while, our hands moving through the soil together. Then Clara said something that surprised me. "You know what the hardest part is?" "What?" "Seeing myself clearly for the first time." She sat back, brushing dirt from her knees. "I thought I was a good person. I thought I was funny and easygoing and that people liked being around me. But after everything happened, I started thinking about other things I'd said, other jokes I'd made, and I realized—" She trailed off. "Realized what?" I asked gently. "I realized I've been mean," she whispered. "Not just to you, to lots of people. I'd say things and laugh them off, and I never stopped to think about how they landed. I thought being funny meant being honest, but really, I was just being cruel." I watched her face crumple with the weight of this realization. "That's the real gift, Clara," I said quietly. "Not the job you lost, not the consequences you faced, but this moment right here, where you see yourself truly. Most people never get there. They spend their whole lives blaming everyone else." She looked at me, her eyes wide and wounded, and somehow clearer. "I don't want to be that person anymore," she said. "Then don't be." "It's that simple?" "No," I said. "It's that hard, because every day you'll have to choose again. To be kind instead of clever, to be thoughtful instead of funny, to think about how your words will land before you speak them." She nodded. "Will you help me?" "I already am," I said. We finished weeding the jasmine bed as the sun started to set. The flowers were blooming again, filling the air with their sweet, heavy scent. As Clara was leaving that evening, she stopped at the door and turned back. "Jimena," Yes? That porcelain frame. The one you were going to give me at the party. Do you still have it? My heart squeezed. I do. Could I see it? I went to my bedroom and brought it back. The frame with the photo of me holding baby Daniel. Clara took it carefully, running her fingers over the carved flowers. She looked at the picture for a long time. You were so young, she said softly. I was, I agreed. And I thought I knew everything. But I was still learning, just like you are now. She handed it back to me. I don't deserve this yet. But maybe someday, if I keep trying, you'll give it to me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Humility. Real humility. Maybe, I said. We'll see. She smiled. A small, sad, hopeful smile. And as I watched her walk to her car, I thought about mirrors. How sometimes we need to shatter before we can see ourselves clearly. How painful the breaking is, but how necessary. Clara had looked into a mirror that day at the grocery store. Not at her old boss, but at herself. And for the first time, she hadn't looked away. That night, I placed the porcelain frame back on my nightstand. Empty again, but waiting. Because some gifts need to be earned, some trust needs to be rebuilt, and some stories need time to find their ending. It's been 2 years since that birthday party. 2 years since the microphone, since the envelope, since the 27 calls. Clara is still at the community clinic. She was promoted to office manager last month. She comes over every Wednesday, without fail. We work in the garden. We talk about life. Sometimes we just sit in comfortable silence. Last week, on my 61st birthday, she brought me a gift. It was wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a porcelain frame, white, with tiny flowers carved into the edges, exactly like the one I'd bought for her 2 years ago. I saved for 6 months, she whispered, her eyes wet. I wanted to get the exact same one, to replace what I took from you. I held the frame in my hands, empty, waiting. Clara, I said softly, you didn't take anything from me. You taught me something. What? That I'm worth defending, even from the people I love. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I went to my bedroom and came back with the original frame, the one with the photo of me holding baby Daniel, the one I'd kept for myself. This one, I said, placing it in her hands, is yours now. You've earned it. She looked at me, stunned. Are you sure? I'm sure. She held it against her chest and sobbed. Real, grateful, healing sobs. Daniel came over later that evening with my grandchildren. Yes, Clara is pregnant now, 5 months along with a little girl. They sang happy birthday. We ate cake. We laughed. And when Clara looked at me across the table, I saw something I'd been waiting 2 years to see. Not guilt, not fear, respect. Real, earned, lasting respect. That night, after everyone left, I stood in my kitchen with the new frame Clara had given me. I found a photo of the 2 of us from last month, working in the garden together. Both of us smiling, both of us muddy and real. I placed it in the frame, and I set it next to the jasmine on my windowsill. Some flowers take years to bloom. Some wounds take time to heal. Some people need to fall before they learn to stand with grace. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know this. I spoke my truth. I held my ground, and I made room for someone to grow. If my story helps one woman remember her worth, it was worth telling. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched your heart, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes one story can change an entire day or an entire life. Every woman has a voice. Every woman deserves respect. And every woman has the right to say, enough. God bless you. And remember, life always keeps its score, not through revenge, but through reflection. See you next time.